A good contract is worth its weight in gold. Are you a creative entrepreneur who contracts your services to others? Well, listen up, because this is for you. The Smithers Law Group has created 14 master contracts specifically for creative entrepreneurs. These contracts are industry specific, they're fully customizable, and you only pay a one-time fee. This is so much better and more affordable than speaking with an attorney who's going to charge you an hourly consultation fee, and it's so much more secure than just Googling up your contract and hoping for the best. Find your fully customizable and industry-specific contract at stulawgroup.com. Search for the contract link. And don't forget to tell them that I sent you.
And so I just always been around white people, and I never felt weird around them until they make it like weird. I didn't experience racism until I was about 8. And that was from like an Asian woman and then a Mexican lady. So white people, I've been okay with. It wasn't really until the 2016 election that I started to see the white side of my family a lot differently.
Repeat after me. I bring more than diversity. I bring irreplaceable perspectives. Hey friends, my name is Whitney, and I'm the host of Impostrix Podcast, the show that validates professionals of color navigating imposter syndrome and racial toxicity in their career. Join us and be validated. You got this. Welcome back to Impostrix Podcast. My name is Whitney Lee. I'm your host, and I'm here today with Kendra, who is the podcast host of Crushgasm, One Gasm. And I met her via, I think, Instagram, and we just started connecting. I was actually on her podcast recently talking about my elementary school crush. It's a very interesting podcast, lots of fun. And Kendra had mentioned some stuff about imposter syndrome, and I was like, well, why don't you come on the show? So here we are. I am happy to have you, Kendra. Can you introduce yourself with your name and the identities that you're bringing to this conversation?
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm Kendra, like you said, host of Crushgasm. Imposter syndrome for me, I've experienced it in the way that I guess I was like an honor roll student, and I think you have high expectations for what your life's going to be, and then you get in the real world and there's no grades and they don't treat you the same way that they do in school. So I've had this imposter syndrome of what I should have done in life versus what I have done. And then in writing as a freelancer, they're always playing on, well, you're Black, so you have to write about this, or you're Black, so you can't write about this. And I grew up very emo, very in that MySpace pop punk scene. So being Black in the early 2000s, there's a lot of imposter syndrome. You feel like you shouldn't be there. And as a woman who doesn't want to just sleep with everybody, you just really I'm trying to get free tickets to a concert. Please just let me interview you. So in various ways.
Mm-hmm. And so what racial identities are you?
I am Black, Spanish, and German Irish.
Okay. And you have beautiful hair. If you're not watching, if you're just listening, Kendra's got these like beautiful French braids that just look great. Okay. So you said a lot there that I can really relate to. I was also pretty emo as a adolescent, and also grew up during the MySpace times where you could change your music whenever you wanted to, and the music would always be something that was either yelling at you or something that made you want to cry. And I listened to some pop rock, which was very out of the norm for the environments that I was in, at least as far as when I was in Black spaces. And I definitely remember feeling different. I like to skateboard. That was very strange for people who looked like me. And I remember skateboarding one day down the street, and I was trying to do a trick, and my softball coach happened to have been driving his car down the street and saw me like completely wipe out. And it was the most embarrassing thing. And so he stopped and he rolled down his window and was like, I don't know, made some smart comment and was laughing, and then drove on. It's like, oh,
rude.
Okay. Yeah. So Okay, you mentioned that you're a freelance writer, and you also work in schools, right?
Yeah, I'm a instructional aide in a pre-K class in a school that's pre-K through 8th grade. So
Lots
yeah,
of kids.
we have the
Mm,
littlest ones.
that's cute. That's real cute. I bet they're
It's
cute.
fun. Oh, they're so adorable, but they have a bad side.
Yeah. Okay,
But
so
they
let's
are
start with
sweet.
your, I'm going to call it your traditional job as an aide in the classroom. How did you get there? Were you, when you went to school, did you want to be a teacher? Did you want to be with kids?
No. No, after college, I went to school just to move away. I
Mm,
had no plans. They're like, when you're on a roll or it's advanced class, they're always pushing college towards you, especially of our generation. I think millennials are the last ones to kind of get that push. And they were always like, well, you got to go. That's your trail to glory, your path to success. So I went, but they really don't tell you much else. Once you get there, it's such a big university. Your counselors, you don't even see these people unless you seek them out. So you're kind of just like thrown in. And then I came from a family that does not do higher education. I was the first to really
mm,
graduate
mhm.
on time, not, and then was it like when you go to the adult ed or something like that? So I
Yeah.
was first to graduate, first to go off to college. So my mom was no help at all. I didn't know how to do the FAFSA at all. I had to call my high school counselor to be like, how do I do FAFSA when I was in college? Because I couldn't reach anyone at the university. And I go and I have no clue what I want to major in. I'm just taking all those stupid general ed classes that just cost money for no reason. And then I got to be a junior and they're like, you have to declare a major. And I was like, okay, well, what do I have the most credits towards? And they were like, humanities. I was like, I don't know what that is, but let's go for it. And then I ended up doing that. And then when I graduated, lost even more so because you're like, what do I do with humanities? What
Right.
even is that?
Yeah.
It's such a made up thing. And so I started writing, but I do like my little side hustles, and I wound up working at a private school in Los Angeles that was like ritzy ditzy. I was just proctoring their AP exams and like
Mm.
SATs, ACTs. So I was in a school setting, and that helped me when we were planning to leave Virginia. I was like, well, what do I want to do? And so I just applied to Columbus City Schools on a whim, and I think COVID, the pandemic, a lot of educators left. They need a lot more. And I got hired. I was like, I'm not going to be there for like 2 months. And they're like, it's okay. We'll hold the position. And then I got there and now I'm in a pre-K class. And I love it. I love being in school. I think it's that like my
Wow.
past is like a nerd. I
Yeah.
just love school settings. I'm just like comfortable in them. And Columbus is a very heavily Black population. I'm on the west side, and it's a lot of lower income students, which I grew
Mhm.
up broke as a joke. And
Mhm.
so I'm really comfortable. There's no imposter syndrome in the pre-K, like, because there's a lot of, my dad's always like, are there people like us? Like, he always has to ask wherever I live. He's like, are we there? And I'm like, Dad, it's crazy. There's only 4 white kids in this class of 19. The rest are Black or Hispanic. And he's like, wow. So I feel really cool being like, you can tell when the little like Black girls are like, Miss B, like they get all excited to
Yeah.
talk to you. Because I was thinking about this. I didn't have a Black teacher until I think college. Yeah,
Wow.
I had a sub in elementary. That's how much it stands out. I had one Black sub in elementary, none in maybe like 1 or 2 subs in middle, but none that stick out. And then there was a Black English teacher, but I didn't have her. I had the white one in high school.
Where did you grow up going to school?
Banning, California, near it's like an hour or so from Palm Springs before you hit Palm Springs,
Okay.
near
Okay.
like Coachella and stuff.
Yeah. So I grew up in Seattle. I did have Black teachers in elementary school, but they were older. And in general, I don't remember teachers being young, period.
No.
Um, and I went to a couple of schools in middle school. So I was very different from you. I was not the good student. I was
Oh.
the student that like was sent to the guidance counselor and was in like the guidance counselor program. And at the time when you're a kid, you're like, I'm special. I get to go shoot rockets in the, on the playground with the guidance counselor. But as an adult, you look back and you realize it's because you were a problem child.
Oh.
And that was their way of, I don't know, maybe doing some kind of child therapy. I don't know. Anyways, So I went to a lot of schools in middle school because I got kicked out. And at one point, I went to an all black school, which was
Oh.
very interesting. That had black teachers, and they were younger. Um, and then, yeah, through high school, I had one black teacher who was also an English teacher. Um, Her name was Miss Alakalaro, and that was it. And in college, I do not remember black teachers.
It's
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
college is like
I had one, Professor White, who was on my podcast actually in season 1. Um, so yeah, that's really cool that you're in an environment where young students recognize basically like
Mhm.
the importance of having people that look like them and also that they can relate to you um, because you look like them and you mirror them.
I also
So
dress like them. I dress very childlike, so it's very bright. Very. I look like a modern day Miss Frizzle sometimes. I'm just like,
yes,
let's
Miss
wear
Frizzle.
flowers. Let's wear flowers. It was Spirit Week last week, so I had a lot of fun with the Read Across America themes.
Oh, I bet you did. And you've got like glitter. So if you're not watching, Kendra's got glittery glasses that got
Yeah.
multiple colors in them. I feel like you would be like the cool teacher, basically.
I'm the youngest eight. I'm the youngest in the classroom, but we all dress like pretty young. The part time aide, she's black too, and then the teacher's white. But we just keep it cool for all the students. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool to do that, and it's cool that they get to be around people that look like you went to like one black school. I went to a school that was pretty diverse, but being my personality of being what they call like you're too white is what they call me.
Mhm.
Another that's a whole other bag to open of imposter syndrome
Mhm.
of race. But I had my group was pretty diverse. We had every race in our group because I feel like we were the kids that didn't fit into the others. Like we had Native
Yep.
American, Indian from India, Asian, Mexican, white. So we were like this little United Nations because we just didn't fit in. But it's not like anyone ever made me feel bad about it. Like my first friend in school was a little black girl named Tatiana. And then another black girl came in elementary. We're the only 3 black kids in our elementary school from K through 5th. Maybe a black kid would
Wow.
pop in and out, but for our grade, we were together until we went to the middle school where there's more black kids and they found, cooler people to hang out with. And I was like, that's okay.
I
That's
remember
cool.
so when I went to the black school, I was frequently called an Oreo. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you were black on the
Mm-hmm.
outside, white on the
Oreo,
inside.
coconut.
Yep, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Cause yeah, I always got the you are well, I talk white is what I was told. And
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, I don't know what you want from me, but fine, cuz like I'm clearly black and I don't necessarily fit in these white spaces, but okay. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's a whole thing. But so as far as your freelance career
Mm-hmm.
goes, what is that like as far as dealing with imposter syndrome? Is that a space where you do feel imposter syndrome?
I do on some level because I don't have a lot of like self esteem for my writing. Like I've been doing it since 2010. So it's like, well, you must be
Wow.
good. Yeah, you must
Yeah.
be good at it if you keep getting hired for things. But I'm not at the level of where I think I should be. And I think it's sometimes because I'm not like I see some writers where like they just interviewed Beyonce for like Essence. And I'm like, maybe I'm not with Essence because I'm not black enough. Like for some sites,
Mm.
they're like, oh, for Black history, do this, this, and this. And you're like, that's cool. But I feel like I don't have a lot of those experiences to take them to the next level. Like I can
Mhm.
only write from my own like mixed experience. And there's really no space for that in the world, except
Mm.
for like on Kenya Barris's shows where he really pushes mixedish and what black AF or whatever. So just for
Yeah.
that and the type of spaces I started out in, I started in music and being a black female in like the pop punk, going to like backstage at Warp Tour, it's like you stick out like a sore thumb. And I'm always like kind of cowering too because I don't have that like extroverted personality to own the space as well. I think that's it.
Interesting. So we're recording this in March, and this month, a lot of my shows are about Black women and how Black women are treated as far as stereotypes and racism and the intersectionality of racism and sexism. So one of my guests, we spoke about the TV show Harlem. I don't know if you've watched it.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So it's basically like a Girlfriends or a Sex in the City, but with
Okay.
Black people.
Oh.
And my guest, though, is a biracial woman who identifies as biracial. And we were talking about Blackish, and we were talking about Bo and Bo's family, and how when her family saw Bo's family, they finally felt like they saw representation of themselves in media. And I hear you talking a little bit about that, about how our identities can kind of define in a lot of ways which spaces we're welcome into and which spaces we're not,
Mm-hmm.
even when we're writing. Like when I think about writing and freelance work, I think about creativity, and I think about like wanting diverse perspectives and experiences, and
Mm-hmm.
not wanting to give the same perspective every single time. But it sounds like you're very much so experiencing that there are kind of requirements or expectations depending on what your background is racially, but also culturally, and what you're reporting or writing on. Is that right?
Yeah, I feel like once they know you're Black, they're gonna be like, "Oh, do you want to do this for Black?" Like Black History Month, huge month for Black freelancers because they are like, "Let's get these out." You know, what's
Mm-hmm.
the hood like? And you're like, "Didn't grow up in that. I grew up poor, but in a trailer park situation, not the
Mm-hmm.
hood." So yeah, I feel like once they know you have, they kind of think that's your perspective. But just because you're Black doesn't mean you have the same perspective as someone who, like, you grew up in Seattle or someone who grew up, XYZ. So I feel like stop putting that on us, just because I have the same melanin as you doesn't mean I have the same life as you. So please,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. And I think, you were talking about humanities, which, as we know, is one of those majors like English, where it's
Maybe.
just kind of like, I mean, I enjoyed it, but like, what do I do with it? My sister, I've talked about this before, majored in English and had like a whole, I would call it a crisis. I don't know what she would call it, but like when you graduate, similar to what you're saying, and then
Like,
you're like, oh shit, okay.
what
Uh,
do I do with this?
right, right.
Other than being an English teacher, I
Right,
can't do
and she's
more.
someone similar to you, like, she loves art, she loves writing, she loves drawing, and our society does not encourage that as a profession
Mm-hmm.
because of the perception that you can't make money, and since our society is so heavily focused on making money, it's kind of like, why would you do something that doesn't make you money?
Mm-hmm.
But I digress. So, I can definitely understand where imposter syndrome would come in for you if you're somebody one. So I heard several things: that you're a first generation graduate and college student, at least in the
Mm-hmm.
traditional sense, and that you graduated with this degree that you weren't sure what you were going to do with, and you're going into freelance writing at a time and in a space where, as a person of color, you're expected to write about certain things that you
Mm-hmm.
are feeling like you don't have the personal experience to actually be able to write
Yes.
about.
So you missed out on opportunities too, if you're like.
Yeah, and that was going to be one of my questions around, like, how does the imposter syndrome that you do experience, or the self-doubt, or being treated like an imposter, because frankly, I think a lot of what you're experiencing is just other people saying, well, you don't fit into the box
Mhm.
that we want you to fit in. So, no, no to you, or, be something different, or do something different, or do this anyways. And I wonder if there have been opportunities that you've passed up on, or did not even put yourself out there for, because of imposter syndrome, or this like
Oh,
feeling of self-doubt, or of
mhm.
feeling like, I know that they're going to want me to write about this and I don't have that experience.
Yeah, I have friends that'll be on the lookout because I know, like, going to job boards, especially for freelance, isn't really like we use Twitter or X or whatever, and you'll see like editors be like, "Oh, if you're this, this, and this, and you have this experience, will you pitch us?" And you're always like, I have this, and but not that. So you
Mm-hmm.
kind of just are like, why even put my hat in the ring when I know I can't do my best for you? Because you
Mm-hmm.
want like the Black experience, not so much my experience with something. Or if it's like TV shows that are, more centered towards Black folks. But I don't care what I watch as long as it's a good show. But sometimes, like for Insecure, I just love the show. But as like a Black powerful woman, I couldn't relate to Molly in any way. Like I
Mm-hmm.
related to Issa, but not because I'm a Black woman, just because like I feel the struggle of just adulthood. But
Mm-hmm.
they kind of want because you're a Black woman, what's it like? But it's like, I don't know, I just because it sucks. Adulthood sucks.
Yeah, for everybody. Can't we please be teenagers? Or
I would be
better yet,
12 for
yeah, I was gonna say not teenagers, younger than teenagers. Uh,
before puberty, because
yeah,
puberty just it messes you up.
I'd like to be 9.
Innocent. I feel like that's your last year of innocence. 9. You're just like, oh my God, the world's so nice. Like I hear these pre-K kids talk all the time, and I'm like, to be that naive and that just like, just bright-eyed to the world. I think that's why I like that class too, that age.
Yeah.
That-
Well, I'm sad by what you're saying because we're not a monolith, obviously, Black people, and I don't know. I mean, like I said at the beginning, like I think people should want our different perspectives. And I don't think that that should be something that um excludes us from being able to share our perspectives because like I don't know, I guess I'm trying to in my mind kind of relearn what it means to be a Black person for me. Because I have spent so much of my life comparing myself to other Black people and being told that I am an Oreo or being told that I'm not Black enough. Because basically, I don't share the experience of what mainstream society has portrayed as Black. So, growing up in the ghetto, speaking Ebonics or other forms of how we speak culturally or having some even as far as pop culture goes like having some of those shared memories around TV shows that like I never watched or other information or knowledge that it's assumed that all Black people have, but of course we don't because we're all different and grew up in different spaces. So it's interesting to me to learn more and more about what this looks like in media, whether it's TV shows or writing. So, what have you done? What's worked for you in terms of getting past that imposter syndrome?
I think just focusing more on as in freelance, just what I know and what I can bring to like a different website. Like I've coined myself as like a little 90s expert, a little millennium girly. So that's kind of the avenue. I kind of stray from anything that's race based because I'm like, I just want to have fun and write about like Lizzie McGuire and why that show was the best thing ever. Or I want to write a list about, Furbies and Tamagotchis. Like I go more like general millennial than race based now, as much as I can. Like if someone needs me, like I did my friend's podcast an evening at the movies for Black History Month, and I chose Crooklyn because I feel like that is a movie that is Spike Lee's like Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown, the best that they've done, but because it's a Black woman or female as the lead, it's going to get pushed down. So I did talk about that, but I felt like I couldn't bring enough to it because it's a Black family and I grew up in a mixed family. So, but on that level, I do try to stray away from race as much as I can, not like purposely. If like I want to talk about it, I will, but I try to stay like pop culture 90s, what I know, what I'm
Mm-hmm.
good at.
Mm-hmm. But you also know about your experience. You
I do
know,
love op-eds. So if like anything pops up that I'm pretty sure I can do, I'll do it because I don't like to like pitch something. And the worst is as a freelancer is pitching it and being like, I can do this, and then like the getting it approved and being like, I can't do this. Oh my god. And so you're like, oh, what did I get myself into?
hey y'all, so let's switch gears for just a minute. We talk so much about empowerment of folks of color on this show. And now I want to take a second to talk about our legacy. It's so important that as we're out here doing our thing and making that money and trying to be the people that we want to be for our communities and families, that we get our estate plan together. And I know estate planning can be overwhelming. We've got your back. Our team is here to guide you every step of the way. Wills for the People is an estate planning practice that prioritizes creating and advancing generational wealth, particularly within families of color and middle-class families. This is because it's so important that we just get started. So, what do you want your legacy to be? And what steps have you taken to ensure that that happens? Take those steps with Wills for the People, where intentional planning meets transformative results. Visit our website for your free consultation at willsforthepeoplega.com. Mention Impostrix Podcast and we'll give you 10% off of your package. All right, I'll see you over there. Let's get back to the show. Yeah. That's as a consultant responding to RFPs, which are, I guess, requests for production or projects or something. I don't know what the P stands for. But like writing up this master plan, and then getting it and then being like, all right, we're going to do this. It is, it's a moment for sure. So, I mean, what about the white part of you? The whiteness in your identity. Do you find similar kind of, I want to say exclusion. I don't know if that's the right word.
People are always like, "Oh, you're black," and I think they're like, "Well, she's so white, she must have grew up more white." My mom's looks Native American; she's Spanish and white as well, so she's mixed too. But she leans more brown, so I grew up more attached to my Spanish side. But my older brother is white and is Spanish, and he looks more white. So I grew up around him and his like metalhead friends. He looked like Wayne from Wayne's World in the 90s, and he did have a friend that looked like Garth, so it's pretty cool. And so I just always been around white people, and I never felt weird around them until they make it like weird. I didn't experience racism until I was about 8. And that was from like an Asian woman and then a Mexican lady. So white people, I've been okay with. It wasn't really until the 2016 election that I started to see the white side of my family a lot differently. We'll say that. I was like, interesting.
Yeah.
How can you love me and my brother, who's my only full brother in life, and then or my little like nephew who looks like little brown boy, little Hispanic boy because his mom is Mexican, and I'm like, you can love us, you say you love us, but how could you support something that clearly does not love us?
Right, does
No
not love
respect
us, does not want us to thrive, does not.
I barely started talking to one relative again, because I'm hoping she's changed her ways, but
we gonna find out.
Yeah, well, we'll see when she starts posting things.
Yeah, we're gonna find out real quick.
Yeah.
As far as the schooling goes, and I mean, you're being an aide in classrooms, and it sounds like that's a place that you're really comfortable, and so you're not really dealing so much with imposter syndrome. Do you feel as though your unique perspectives, that is a place where you can shine as far as bringing all of your experience and, all of the cultures that are involved in your upbringing?
Yeah, I think just being like somebody that is like older than them and in this like leadership role for these little black kids is like huge. Like you said, to see the representation at that, like your first time in school is going to set them up for being like, okay, I belong here. There's people like me here. I also know what they're going through financially, like in their homes. If they don't come, because our kids some of them, not all of them, come from homes that aren't the greatest. I didn't come from a home that was picture perfect. So if they come in a little like acting a little different or something, I know that's probably because maybe they didn't eat last night. Maybe mom was doing something she shouldn't have been. So I feel like I I relate to them on multiple levels,
Mm.
racially and economically. And also I'm one of those adults that I never forget what it's like to be those ages. My favorite quote is like from Perks of Being a Wallflower. It's like, when you're 16, you turn 17, you forget what it's like to be 16. I never forget about what every age is. Like my husband's like, how do you remember when you were 4 and 5? I'm like, how do you not? Like, how do you not remember your first day of kindergarten and feeling so nervous and then making that first friend? So I also relate to them on that because I know what they're feeling.
I don't
And
remember any
it's
of
interesting. It's so interesting to see them like have little cliques and just like how Mean Girls get started. It's wild to watch. I don't like people. I'm not like a social person, but I
Mhm.
think people are the most interesting creatures we can study on Earth, and that's what I do every day. I'm like, like it's just wild to watch at 4
Yeah.
and 5 years old.
Ugh. Ugh. So sorry, I'm saying that because my kids are that age, and I'm just like, I couldn't imagine being around a bunch of them
It's
every single day.
I know my
Uh,
husband I come home and he's like asking me questions. I'm like, stop. You don't know all. It's 19 of them being like, Miss B, why? Why this? What's that? Oh my God. And you're like, shh. Shh.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. All the time, all the time. They don't care if you're listening or not. They're just gonna continue to talk at you
Mhm. Mhm.
until you engage with them. So yeah, that seems exhausting to me. Um,
It is, but it's fun.
and you mentioned I'm always curious about how honors and AP classes, like how that feels when you are a person of color. And maybe it doesn't feel any different, but like for me in high school, again, I was not in AP or honors classes. I'm a twin though, and my twin sister was. So
Oh.
we didn't have classes together because she was in the smart classes, I was in the regular people classes. And we were two of, I don't know, maybe 15 people of color in the school, even less black people. And I imagine she was, maybe there were two people in her AP classes, like her and one other person of color. Um, but I just wonder whether you noticed that as a
Mm.
student who's matriculating through these, advanced classes that are highly competitive, and where maybe people have different resources than you do, and how, what you experienced going through that.
Well, they tested me for GATE, the gifted and talented, whatever, in like second or third grade. So they knew pretty early on this one's one of the good ones. Let's get her
Mhm.
in there. But my school district wasn't the best, so it's not like we had more. And I didn't really notice race playing a part into it until I got to middle school because in elementary school you're just with all the other kids,
Right.
you're just like
Yeah.
whatever. But middle school they put me in advanced classes and I was with two other black girls and one I'm gonna say one black boy, and we kind of from 6th to 8th grade stayed together. There's no once
Mm.
you're in that smart class they kind of herded you together through middle school. And I did notice like a race thing played into it until we got to, I want to say 7th or 8th, and they were like women in STEM, colored women in STEM, and they
Mhm.
sent the three of the black girls and then I think one or two Hispanic girls off for the day. And I was like, I hate math and science. I was like, why? It was just the five of us. So I was like, this is a race thing. They want to
Yeah.
sit. I don't think any of us went into math or science. If I'm thinking of all the one's real estate, one's a mom, one went into science. She's like does environmental stuff. So
Oh,
maybe
cool.
it helped her, but the rest of us, that was the only time I felt like race played a part. And in high school, we have two middle schools in our district, so they funnel us into one high school.
Mm.
And that's where it kind of broadened. We got a little bit more, but they're from the other school, so I didn't really click with them too much. But race, though, because of our school district not being the best, we didn't have more opportunities than anybody else in the school. It was just like,
Interesting.
you're in a different class and let's take I feel like the only person to pass the AP exam was like the other mixed black girl in the class. Who was our valedictorian, who's the environmentalist. She's super,
Oh, good for
super
her.
genius smart. Yeah. So other than that, like our school was not doing what AP should be doing. But when I was doing the AP test at the fancy private school, proctoring them, that school almost, I think a lot of their Black students were poached from other schools for athletics.
Yep.
Or like I mentioned Blackish Kenya Bears, his daughter went to that school. That's what kind of school this was. It was for people that could
Mm.
pay the tuition of however much it takes. So, and then in my exams, I feel like I didn't have that many Black kids, that many brown kids in those AP exams. It was like very white, very, you know.
Yeah, I
I
think
think I
that's
remember
what I'm
like two or
thinking of
three.
when I'm thinking of AP classes. And it's, I think from my perspective as someone who did go to private school, so the AP classes that my sister were in a private Catholic school.
Mm,
And most of the families, like we grew up middle class. I think probably most of the families were middle to upper class. And I could tell like class seemed to be a bigger thing
mm,
um, than race in some respects
oh, yeah.
because it was something that was actually talked about. Whereas
Mm,
race, it was still one of those like Black people talked about it, people of color talked about how there were not other people of color, but there weren't a lot of conversations going on around the school around race or lack of diversity. But when it came to how much you were spending on something or what kind of car the
oh.
junior received for their birthday or what kind of shoes you were wearing or whether or not you had a job, whether or not you could afford a parking spot at the school, or if you were taking the bus, that type of thing were things that were talked about. And
Mhm.
so, but I had friends who were in the public school system who were taking AP classes, and some of the more inner city schools, of course, had more students of color and people who were in the AP classes, but other schools that were in the suburbs having less people of color. And I think, that's just a pattern that we see throughout the United States around our education system. And certainly I'm seeing that now as a parent I have one son who's autistic and another son who's not, and learning more about the various gifted and talented programs. Um, and just really, for me, I've been paying a lot of attention to who is getting the resources for these programs, whether it be, um, you know, people of color who are being excluded or not, or people with more financial means who are getting advantage or who are getting to take advantage, I guess, of those types of programs.
Mhm.
So, I'm curious because I can't believe you've been writing. So you've been freelancing for 14 years.
Mhm. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like
And
music, TV, pop culture, op-ed. Like my resume is like this is it's a wild pattern.
yeah, that's awesome. So what are your goals?
I would love to write a book about something. I want to write. There's like a few books I have in my head that I hope I can write. They're usually pop culture based, and then I've written for this one lady since 2015, and when we would go to lunch, I would tell her stories of my life because I grew up like trailer trash, and she's like, "These are so like they shouldn't be funny, but they're so funny. You should write about that." So I do have that in mind as well because I think just like because you think I that's my other thing is like my favorite genre of film is coming of age, and when they're
Mm,
black they're always like let's make it about their blackness, which is the
yeah.
most that's why I love Crooklyn because they have the black aspects of it, but it's about a family, it's about a girl growing up losing her mom. And I want to write that coming of age story where it's a black girl, but she's not in the ghetto. She's not like the only black kid at this school. It's just her life, and then she's just existing. Like when you watch like Perks of Being a White Wallflower, it's not about him being white or Love Simon, things like that, or
Well, yeah, I mean,
being
any white
gay.
show.
Yeah, it's
Right.
just like they get to, I think Issa Rae said it, they get to just exist, while when you're Black or Hispanic or Asian, we have to put our race as the core thing of the issue of the show or the movie. It's like, no, I'm just living my life just like you. Like, I have my ups and downs. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one of my goals as well in writing.
Mm, that would be awesome.
Books, yes. And my pipe dream, SNL. Could I last?
Really?
No. Could I last a week? No, I'm reading Kenan Thompson's book right now, and how stressful his first. I
Mm,
think he didn't really feel like he fit in. Speaking of imposter syndrome, tells his third season.
wow.
Third season. So it's a pressure cooker in there. But I would love to write like skits,
Mm-hmm.
sketches.
Well, you'll get there. You'll get there.
Oh,
To
thank
me,
you.
it's like it's amazing that you've hung in there for so long, and that you're able to build like a career. I think for someone, okay, so I am unfamiliar with the freelance life. Like I don't know what that's like, and am recently kind of learning more about entrepreneurship and my own journey. But it's amazing to me that people figure out a way to financially sustain themselves doing things long term. Right, like whatever it is that they do long term, and I think that in and of itself is like a victory that should be celebrated, that like you enjoy writing and you do write and it's a career for you.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I just love it. I mean, I fell into it because after college, my dad's like, I'm not going to pay for you to go to concerts anymore. And I was like, oh, what? Oh my God. So, and then when I worked with this one lady at a radio promotions company, I was doing CD reviews for, and she's like, you're really good at this. You could try to like interview people and like get press passes. And that's how it started. And then just from there, I was like, how could I grow on this? And people are like, it's not a real job. And I'm like, yes, it is. I get money and I don't ask you to pay my rent. So calm down.
Right, right, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up here in a second, but I want you to tell us a little bit about your podcast for folks who are
Oh,
interested.
well, Crushgasm is like my favorite thing in life is like a slumber party and talking about people you like. And I was like, how do I make a show out of this? And I was like, what do we all have in common? Our baseline crushes. Everyone has a
Mhm.
crush, whether it's like on a fictional character or a real person. And I was like, let's bring that. And then I named it. My husband was podcasting for about a few months or something before I was like, well, he could do it. Remember, like I interview people all the time via email. Let's just use my voice this time. So I was like, let's do it. So people come on like yourself and they talk about a specific crush they've had in life. And you did elementary school, which is such a big, that's our first crush. Come on.
Mhm.
And I've had just been going since 2021 now. And it's just really fun. People come on, they talk about a crush, we talk about themselves, and I just love it. Love it,
Mm.
love it, love it.
So what's your favorite, like, crush story of, like, your personal crushes?
Oh God. I'm always going to go to middle school. I think like elementary school's cute, but middle school's where like the hormones are going and you're
It's
just so
real.
confused
It's
about,
real,
yeah,
yeah.
that is the love of your life. They'll never know it. And of course I look back and I'm like, he wasn't even that cute. He was like not at all. We're friends today on Facebook and he has a life that I could never even want, like
Mhm.
kids and the family and all that. And I'm
Mhm.
like, not for me. So I'm glad it didn't work out. I'm glad he never gave me the time of day. But I love middle school ones. I had a singer on and she talked about a middle school and liking that. Like she was totally like goody goody. And he was like that rebel skater, like back and like
Mhm.
her just being like, do you want a pencil? And it was such a cute like story. I love that story. I love middle school. I think that's my favorite era of like human life because everybody's confused. Everyone's going through the same thing, whether you're the popular girl or the loser. You're all stressing about the stupidest things, and it's amazing. And I wish we could bond more over that at the time instead of like years down the line when you're like, oh, you were miserable too. That's cool. I wish we knew then. I wish they have you ever watched Big Mouth on Netflix?
No.
It's an animated series that goes over everything we're going through, like mentally. Like
Mm.
it personifies our emotions, like shame and
Oh,
our
cool.
hormones. They have hormone monsters. They're all going through puberty, and I feel like while it gets really risque at times, it would be a perfect show to show kids once they hit like 12 years old, so they can
Mm.
understand you're not alone. Everybody's humping everything right now. You're scared. You're horny. It's like it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Oh, man. Hormone monsters. Amen to that. I feel like
Maya
hormone
Rudolph is
monsters right, I feel like hormone monsters for women just never go away. Like, that is just that's the thing on the shoulder for the rest of life. Well, until menopause maybe, are the
they
hormone
cover
monsters.
that too. The adults in the show, their parents, they get their own little personalities in their head too. And we saw menopause come to life. It's just a beautiful show for like
Okay.
psychological reasons, and it helps heal your like 12-year-old self.
I need to watch that. My 12-year-old self definitely needs healing.
And they
Definitely.
have a
That was my
mixed
least favorite
character.
year in life. 12
12.
years old. Yeah.
They have a mixed girl too. Her name is
Nice.
Missy, and she's amazing little nerd in overalls. I love her, and she has the same hair. Pigtails.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, so last question. Tell us what the mantra or affirmation that you really rely on during this season. What is that?
During like the season of life or
Yeah.
season of the show. Just keep going because it's gonna end anyway. So just do you, girl. Life's gonna end, so just
We all
live.
die. That's my
Well,
mantra.
me and my friends, we have a mantra. It's called "Do It for Casey." Because years ago, were you a fan of Hawthorne Heights by any chance? They had the "My heart
No.
is in no high." Well, they were on tour. One of their members, Casey, he died all of a sudden on the tour bus, and it wasn't like a favorite band of any of ours. But my friends were like, "Oh, it's sad. He was so young." And we were in Vegas when we found out, and I was like, "No, guys, yeah, it's sad, but it's cool because he was out there just living what he wanted, living his dream, doing it." So we had this mantra: we do it for Casey. If you're like, I don't want to miss work for this concert, I'm like, do it for Casey. Life's too short. So do it for Casey would
Yes.
probably be my biggest life mantra for any season.
Yeah.
So you never know when it's going to end. So just do
No.
it.
I love that. Awesome. That's a great note to end on. So share with us where we can find you on
You can go
Instagram or wherever else.
you can go to crushgasmpodcast.com, and it has links to Twitter X. I'll call it Twitter because that's its government name, not this nickname X. And then it's Crushgasm Pod on that, Crushgasm Podcast on Instagram, and you can find me on Facebook. Everything, anywhere you're listening to a podcast, you could probably find Crushgasm as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kendra, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining me for this conversation. I hope that you got as much out of it as I did. Feel free to continue the conversation with us over on Facebook at the Impostrix Podcast Validating Space. We welcome all, and it's a space for us to validate each other as we work through work, race, and imposter syndrome. You can find out more about me or about the podcast at www.impostrixpodcast.com. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Impostrix Podcast. Until next time, be validated.